Okay, up here in the top left, our red Terran, he is... That was ForGG. All right, down here in the bottom right, our blue Protoss, he is...
Wongjin Stars SOS from Korea.
And I don't know if we're going to introduce him or not, but he's our red Terran.
Millennium ForGG from Europe.
And of course, he is, in fact, a Korean that lives in Europe right now. In fact, he was a very talented StarCraft 1 pro, has an OSL championship, the hardest tournament in StarCraft 1. Basically the equivalent of what GSL is in StarCraft 2. He won it in StarCraft 1 in pretty spectacular fashion, in fact, beating some of the best players in the world on the way. So, an extremely talented player. Even if, you know, some people watching may be big-time GSL fans, I haven't seen him as much. He played some in the GSL and then joined a European team and lives out there now. So kind of a fun and interesting life for him. So it does look like ForGG is going to be going for a 1 barracks expansion once again. For SOS, he's grabbing a couple of gases, so we might see him go for a proxy Stargate. It's hard to say at the moment. He's scouting with pretty reasonable time on this probe. Should be able to check the gases and get out of there. Just barely so. And that is exactly what he's looking for. Notice where he goes to. Bam, there. Gases, gases, no gases. Okay, get out of here. Don't want to lose that to a Marine, no point. We'll even see the command center, so he doesn't even have to have the worry about the 2% of the time that you see someone throw down a couple barracks into a Marine SCV all in. And he can do whatever he wants from here. And in fact, 3 probes, total mining gas. I do think we're going to see a very quick Nexus here. He's not saving up enough gas to get another proxy Stargate. And in fact, with how good ForGG's scouting is, and as we see here and we saw in last game, might be the best choice, really. So down goes that Nexus, not too much slower than the command center. You generally expect for your expansion to be about that much slower than the Terran expansion. It doesn't really make a big difference. Protoss is quite used to it. And just the mothership core on the way. So we're going to have to wait a moment and see what tech routes these guys want to go on. Now I'm wondering with ForGG if he's going to just throw down another command center. And he does. So he's going for this really, really greedy build. We saw him do this against Hero in Game 1. Now, what is SOS going to do? Will he actually send his mothership core across the map to scout? Because if he does, it's going to be really helpful because he'll find out a lot quicker what's going on. But this is kind of neat. Going for the Stargate after expand. And we did see Hero do this as well. We're going to have to compare in this game how SOS does it to how Hero did it. Because Hero went for a couple oracles. And, you know, he did some okay harassment and lost them, and then he just did too much at once for anyone that was watching. Now, will SOS make a similar mistake? Or will he even go for the same type of play? Like, there is a possibility that he'll go for, well, not an all-in with this, but he could definitely go for something a little bit different. Like, for instance, get some Phoenixes out and go for Phoenix Colossus. I have seen SOS go Phoenix Colossus, I believe, in Wings of Liberty. And Phoenixes have been drastically improved in Heart of the Swarm. So he knows exactly what's going on. His brain is going to jump back to the game between Hero and ForGG. And he's going to replay it all in his mind exactly what he saw. So this is actually very useful to him that he knows what ForGG is up to. For instance, he's going to know that ForGG has 4 barracks right now, most likely. And little things like that are going to make a big, big difference. He's going to know when he needs his splash damage out by. He's going to know that he needs to not overextend like Hero as well. Now, just 1 Oracle being made. Another little change that we did not see out of Hero. And based on how far away they are compared to the location on Whirlwind that Hero was compared to ForGG, where he could just fly straight down the side, I do like this choice. Send this first one out. He's going to be afraid of a second one. And look at how quickly he reacted. Wow, that was very fast. Good depot placement, good depot timing there. But I like the choices here by SOS to make the single Oracle. And I feel like he's not going to overextend on his way up the tech tree either. Because he's throwing down that Twilight, and he's probably just going to play kind of like we saw last game. Okay, so he is getting his charge upgrade. Just kind of holding towers. When you hold both towers, you don't worry too much about attacks, because they'd have to go on such a funny route, it would take them too long to get there and be effective. He's getting his Templar Archives very quickly. A good follow-up to an Oracle is very quick splash damage, whether that's going to be Colossus or that's going to be the Twilight type tech. So kind of late on the tech from ForGG. Throwing up his missile turrets as well, just trying to keep that Oracle from doing too much damage, but that actually has to be considered in some ways damage the Oracle has done as well. You know, he doesn't want to build those turrets right now, but he has to. Of course, it could help later on against things like DTs and whatnot, but that's something that SOS will take into consideration, and it'll be less likely to make. So SOS actually taking a third base as well. Now let's compare this to the Hero game. Hero made 2 Oracles, and then he went, what was it, double Forge, made a bunch of Stalkers, went Colossus tech, and took a third. Here we've seen 1 Oracle, straight into High Templar tech with 1 Forge and a third base. So he's actually done this in such a way that it's not quite as greedy as what Hero did. And that's going to make it so that it is infinitely harder for ForGG to actually break him. You know, he's not overextending himself. He's not going above and beyond what he's capable of doing and holding. So as long as he controls well, keeps an eye on everything, and especially keeping this Oracle alive, so useful, he shouldn't be broken by the first attack of ForGG like Hero was, where Hero lost that third base. So the economy going to start going, and at this point, it's going to be in SOS's mind. What he really needs to do is get a lot of gateways and macro heavily. He's going to need a ton of units to be able to deal with the pressure that's going to be coming out. Now he's kind of waiting for a tag probably there. He can, of course, use the pulsar beam to kill off a few Marines or something, but if you can tag the army, that gives you basically a free minute where they can't attack you because you see them coming. Now ForGG looks like he's going to be going for a Widowmine drop. I don't think that pylon's going to see him. So that's pretty fortuitous for ForGG. Now, ooh, that's kind of interesting. Look at the third base location he's deciding to take. Kind of a forward third base location. I like to see things like this, kind of fresh and new. At Stalker, kind of a funny place for it to sit. But he does tag that army, so that last 60 seconds, he's going to be able to see for a long time what's happening. Now, this Widowmine drop is very unexpected. In fact, that's going to be a nice one. That was about 4 or 5 probe kills right there. And this has to be really annoying for SOS. Looks like this Widowmine may just get 1 kill. I'm not sure it even got that, but pretty well done. Now he sees us coming in, so he gets over here in time. Notice third base still being held. The Widowmine drops did okay so far. Okay, 6 kills on that one. But he's held on to everything because he didn't overextend like we saw in the Hero game. And I think that's... Ooh, that's painful though. Ooh, 10 kills on that Widowmine. Very, very painful, bringing him down to 56 probes. And oh my god, this is actually all falling apart. You know, it's too bad because everything else he's actually kind of improved upon the way Hero was playing. Played it in a much more safe and reasonable manner, but the Widowmines are doing way more damage to him than Hero would have taken there. So, kind of, I wonder if SOS actually realized. I actually am gonna go check myself. Okay, he's cleaned one of them with the photon cannon. It looks like the other one is about to be. So he's finally dealing with that, but those Widowmines did deal a lot of damage. Right now, Terran is up by 11 Harvesters, which you don't want to see. Protoss makes Harvesters quicker because of the Chrono Charge, of course, and, you know, Mules. So, a little bit rough there. But that's okay. He's secured the third base. He's got his splash damage. But he's going to have to be careful, because what have we seen every game so far, really, from ForGG? He likes Hellbats. And when Hellbats start coming, this Zealot-type composition isn't going to do as well. So he's got to be careful. Oh my god, that was a really nice storm. But we do have another attack coming down here. Another good storm going down. He has to be careful, though. Zealot's taking a lot of damage. He's zoning out the army well, but ForGG simply has too much right there. He's going to have to back up. He needs some more storms, and he needs some more units as well. Now, double reactored Hellbats are on the way. So he needs to get into other units, and he needs to be very careful what he does with the Zealots. He needs to be focusing on getting Colossi out, protecting his High Templars with those, and protecting those with his High Templars. It's a deadly combination against Terran, and you need that huge amount of damage to actually, you know, weaken the Hellbats enough that you can actually break through them with the rest of your army. Now, ForGG has actually hit a max with a very powerful units. This is a strong attack incoming. He's got 9 medevacs, 8 Hellbats, 33 Marauders, 28 Marines. A scary, scary army against a 163 supply Protoss. So here we go. He is stimming and running up, but the rest of his army is actually way behind right now. If it was a bit closer, this would be so effective. But the rest of his army was actually up at his third. If that was just a bit closer, he could have either flanked that army or perhaps hit the third, something like that. But instead, that was an attack with only a chunk of his army. And as we see now, suddenly the supply is a lot closer. We're within about 20 supply of each other now. And that's a lot of High Templars. He's really getting ready for Psystorm. You know, one thing, and to be honest with you, I'm not exactly sure why, but when people go these heavy Hellbat compositions, they don't normally have ghosts when they start attacking. So we see that those High Templars being very, very useful, but at the same time, a lot more units coming in from behind. High Templars alone can't quite do it. So he's going to have to walk all the way home here. The Zealot harassment doing okay, but he's taking a lot of damage down here, losing all those High Templars, all the Archons they were made into. Looks like he will hold, but a good amount of damage was dealt there. And now we see, once again, a big supply lead for ForGG. And High Templar's actually going down without casting any spells there. That's pretty rough. ForGG just continues to macro and get his upgrades. But I believe we do have 2 Robos right now. No, we actually only have 1 Robo, never mind. So he is making Colossi, but incrementing them out one at a time isn't going to be too scary for ForGG, because he's going to, if ForGG keeps on this type of pressure, he's going to have to show the Colossi right away. Whereas if you show them that you have Colossi at 2 Colossi or at 4 Colossi, you suddenly gain a very strong position because they won't have any Vikings. But here, he's going to have to show at 1, and basically ForGG is going to know the speed with which they're being produced, so he can get the counter to that if that's what he wants to do. So another nice little attack going down here. Trying to hit multiple locations at once. During all this, ForGG is setting up his 4th base, which is normally where you see the 3rd, right there. And in fact, going planetary, knowing that SOS is very good at Zealot Warpins and will continue to harass him. So that's a nice choice there to prevent that. He's really focusing so heavily on Hellbats still. And notice how many Archons there are. Archons eat Hellbats. Like, they're very, very good against them. So this is a nice choice. And again, no ghosts are out here, so that could make it a problem. And Zealot's actually hitting the planetary before it warps in. Really well done. And in fact, they might be able to take it out. If they actually kill that building, oh my god. Oh, and just barely, barely that gets saved. Okay, so now, still, is that a big enough army for Protoss right now? Kind of interesting that he's choosing, instead of getting out like a lot of Colossi, he's choosing to go Archon Colossi. That's where the rest of his gas is going. That's why he's incrementing them out one at a time, because he's decided that Archons are going to be very useful in this situation. Thing is, Archons can be kited reasonably well. So that could be a little bit of a problem here. So he has to be really, really careful here. He cannot be losing all these medevacs. And Nice targeting there. Wow, that's some good drop defense. 2 cannons and a High Templar. And in fact, SOS starting to shred through this army. Look at this. Finally, he takes his supply lead, I think for the first time in the game here. And he's kind of just crushed everything. It looks like SOS has kind of figured out what ForGG is up to. And he's definitely got a unit composition that can deal with it very well. Well, it looks like there's a decent chance he's going to be losing both of these. That is a lot of Archons, and they deal a ton of damage. So, going to be very hard to actually save this base, or even just these orbitals. Trying to flank, but that is so many Archons. Oh my god. Well, looks like SOS probably is going to be tying this game up unless something terrible goes wrong really soon. Supply just absolutely plummeting for ForGG. And this is kind of an interesting way to counter this. I've never seen this exact counter to the really heavy Hellbat play, which is 1 Robo-Colossus and just making as many Archons as you can afford. But it's kind of neat because the Archons are going to cover the Colossi from Vikings as well. Definitely something I'm going to have to end up trying. So it looks like this is just about it. We should be seeing GG in just a moment here, really. There's not much left for GG to do here. And GG. All right, well, I feel like that game, SOS figured ForGG out reasonably well. ForGG really isn't getting ghosts. He's kind of banking on the power of the Hellbat, both as just something that tanks damage and as something that kills off all your Zealots. So what SOS did was use the Zealots a little bit more for harassment techniques to keep ForGG back while he got his more gas-heavy units out. And this included not just Colossi, but also a lot of Archons, because Archons don't take additional damage from Hellbats, they outrange them, they have a lot of health themselves, and they deal ridiculous amounts of damage to them, like +3 Archon against a Hellbat. God, I don't even know how much damage that is. It's like almost 50. So, and there's a little bit of splash in there too. Nice choice there. I like that counter. And ForGG has to decide, does he keep up with this exact strategy? Because there were times where he was almost breaking through. He was almost killing SOS. But as we saw from SOS that game as well, is he learned from the other games. He learned from watching Hero. He did it different. He didn't get the double forge. He didn't make a lot of stalkers. He didn't make 2 oracles. And then he was able to hold that third base. And even though he took a lot more damage from those Widow Mine drops, he stayed within his means, I guess is a good way to put it. You know, he bought what he could afford, and he defended it all. And he continued to tech up and continued to get to that later game. And against a Hellbat-based player, that's actually what you want to do. The Hellbat-based players, they have the power in the early game and the mid game, but once you go to that late game and you get there in a relatively healthy way where you have a really gas-heavy unit composition, you start to kill them because Hellbats don't really translate to the late game. Think of them somewhat as like roaches, where they just get worse and worse when it goes really, really late. So, looks like our next map, Newkirk Precinct. It's already starting up, so we're going to go ahead and jump into that game. Going to be a fun map to see this last game on between these two. One of these guys is going up to that round of 8. We'll see in a moment.